Obviously, today is September 11th, and I think one of the things that strikes a lot of us, especially people like you and me who live in the area and lived through all of this, is the insensitivity that is sometimes presented in some of the remembrances on this day. And everyone has to do it in their own way, of course. But the New York Times put this out there, this tweet. Let's put it up on the screen. And it says, It says, 18 years have passed since airplanes took aim and brought down the World Trade Center. Today, families will once again gather and grieve at the site where more than 2,000 people died. This is one of those things where you say, what is wrong with this picture? If you had a big Sharpie, what would you circle there to draw people's attention to?
I mean, I would cross the whole thing out and start over, because airplanes don't kill people. Muslim terrorists flying the airplanes do. And that's what happened. I remember in the London terror attacks a few years ago where the Islamic terrorists drove vans into pedestrians, and the New York Times says that they were van attacks. It goes back to the Fort Hood is workplace violence. It goes back to Benghazi was triggered by a video. And what Omar said was that some people did some things. The left, and especially the media, try to sanitize terrorism from Islam because they think it's going to cause Islamophobia. They think it's unfair to Islam and it's going to cause more Muslims to radicalize. And ultimately, they want to de-emphasize the war on terror, and they want to fight other wars like the war on global warming.
I mean, more Muslims have been killed by Islamic terrorists than any other group of people. They understand the violence of these people. These are not, this is not airplane violence in the parlance of gun violence. You have to call it what it is, or else you diminish the loss. And also, it was close to 3,000 people. Yeah. Not 2,000.
Yeah, they de-emphasize the amount of people that died that day. And they play games with numbers, Martha. Do you remember when they talk about this gun violence study? Hundreds of people died from gun violence in school shootings. Well, if you look at the study, they counted a guy that dropped his gun at 10 p.m. and it misfired. They called that a school shooting. So they play games.
Jesse, thanks.
Thank you.
Always.
It's hard to believe it's been that long, but today marks the 18th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. If you remember what happened that day, you remember it vividly. Almost 3,000 people died. You might think they were killed by Islamic extremists, but that's because you're clearly a backward simpleton. The New York Times is here to tell you no. This morning, the paper tweeted this, quote, 18 years have passed since airplanes took aim and brought down the World Trade Center. Today, families will once again gather and grieve at the site where more than 2,000 people died. Airplanes took aim. Did Ilhan Omar write that? No, but she could have. Some airplanes did something, she might say. But at least the Times is remembering the attacks at all. CNN remembered 9/11 by trying to distract its audience with a brand new narrative it just made up. On their morning show, a guy called John Avlon explained that actually right-wing terrorism is the real threat. Yeah, you just have to ignore 9/11 and the thousands of troops we lost in the wars it started. Take those out, and actually, it's not a problem at all. CNN's name for the segment was 9/11 Amnesia, describing itself clearly.